Hello, and time for my reaction to the Brexit vote. I woke up this morning and I didn't think about it for a few minutes, then I thought, oh, something's been happening, hasn't it? And I have to say I was shocked and astonished that we voted to leave. I mean, I was in favour of leaving in the end, and I voted that way, but somehow I didn't feel that it was all going to change. And yet, surprise, surprise, we're out, or we're leaving. Goodness me, it's something of a political earthquake, actually, isn't it? I mean, it's not just a little vote. We had something like a 72% turnout, so the public took it very seriously, despite the storms we had in the south here. I don't know what it was like elsewhere in the country. People came out to vote. And although the bad weather favoured the Remain campaign, the Leave campaign, because we're a bit more inclined to vote, I think maybe in the end it didn't make that much difference. It was too important an issue, really. Still, London, Scotland, Northern Ireland voted by quite reasonable margins to stay in. Overall, it was a 4% margin against, as I'm sure you know by now. But in a way, it's not surprising that those regions would vote to remain. London, it's 45% of the population are non-native. They tend to vote more for big government and handouts, and of course in London people are more subject to big business propaganda as well. A lot of people here are working for big multinational corporations, and indeed the ones I've worked with and for have been making official statements to their staff, even on the company's websites and so on. They've been saying how important it is to stay in the European Union, blah blah blah, so that they can make money, of course. Scotland, of course, is keen on its EU handouts. I mean, when they voted on the British Union, staying within the United Kingdom, just about all that Nicola Sturgeon was talking about was handouts that England makes to Scotland, really. That was the key portion of her argument in the debates. It's incredible. So that was no surprise. Northern Ireland, not surprising either. Some districts in Northern Ireland did vote to leave, but the majority voted to stay in. Again, you can see why in these regions the EU represents perhaps stability. It's going to be difficult for Ireland with Britain out. A fifth of Britain's trade goes to Ireland, so it's £1 billion a week or something, or €1 billion anyway a week. That's a lot of trade going both ways. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. But the result, yes, actually a big surprise. And I still hardly believe it. I don't know if it's good news or bad news. Obviously nobody really knows. Why, though, did the majority vote for leaving? What was behind it? I mean, Wales, for example, you would have thought Wales would vote to stay in, but they voted quite comfortably to leave. And I wonder if that's because of things like the Tata Steel crisis, which, although people tended to blame the Conservative government, they were only implementing the rules that were enforced on them by the EU. Carbon pricing and things like that, although the Tories were in favour of allowing the Chinese to dump steel cheaply for some reason. A bit of both there. The other reason, of course, is that the high level of immigration undermines workers. Wales has a very large working class constituency. It's kind of known for it with its history of mining and things of that big industry. And of course the high level of immigration undermines jobs, it undermines wages, and it tends to increase taxes. And although Labour is quite strong in Wales. I think people really understand that Labour is not actually supporting the working class anymore. They're in favour of bringing in immigrants because those people vote Labour. And that's undermining their own voters. You can see the result of bringing in immigrants from the London vote, where there's such a high immigrant population. I think maybe that's not the reason. This isn't a racist argument. I don't care who the immigrants are. It's just that's the way that constituency, that group of people tend to vote. On average, not totally, obviously, but on average, it's well known. And as I've mentioned in other videos, Peter Mandelson, Labour grandee, has admitted that that's why they encouraged immigration. Funny enough, though, that the Conservatives want high immigration as well, so I don't think much is going to change with us leaving. They want it, of course, because it does undermine jobs and reduce wages and increase taxes. It's good for their friends in big business, basically. But I think they need to think about this because it also encourages people to vote Labour. And they should worry about that, I think. Maybe they will now. David Cameron has resigned, so we'll have a new leader. Can't think of any good candidates, but there you go. So really, is this a racist argument or is it economics? I don't think it's racist because if we had a huge birth rate in this country, we'd have the same problems of need for higher taxes, for example, to support all the people. People, of course, if with a birth rate, they would not be productive parts of the economy for 20 years, so the costs would be much higher. But there is a net cost to immigration as well. We're paying about 15 billion a year extra in taxes to provide the services that these people need. They may become productive in the long run, but in the short run, it's a cost. Whoever they are, wherever they come from. There has been, I've been looking at the press, and there has been quite a lot of, I think, disingenuous commentary about the vote, saying it shows how xenophobic or racist the electorate are. I say it's not about racism. We get on really well with foreigners in Britain. We've been an international country for such a long time, for centuries. It's not about that. It's an economic argument, and that's all it is. Sure, there are some racists. There are everywhere. But I don't think irrational racism is what it's about. It's about money and jobs. That's it. It doesn't matter who these people are. They're great people. The most intelligent, most entrepreneurial people from across Europe are coming here. That's great. In the long run, it's going to be really good for the country. In the short run, it's really bad for the locals. Sorry, when there's too many, it just is. And our governments and political parties have not been listening for too long. And they really deserve this drubbing. So, what now though? I've got my notes here, so I'm looking down at them to remind me what to speak about. Otherwise I'll skip bits of it, like what's his name from the Labour Party? Gromit, Wallace, you know. Anyway, so what's happening now? Britain's been warned that it's going to lose its AAA credit rating. The stock market is down, the pound is down, the euro is down as it happens, the European stock markets are down, I think US, Japan, world stock markets are going down big time. It's a big shock. The elites and the powers that be really thought they could get away with it. Well, sorry. If you don't listen, you're going to be punished. Even the Japanese stock market is down because of it. Britain loses its AAA credit rating, it's likely that interest rates will have to rise in this country. They might anyway because of the pound falling a lot. I mean, a falling pound is actually, if it stabilises at a reasonable level, a good thing because it makes our exports cheaper. It will make it easier for us to export. So it will actually be good for business and good for jobs. It will bring up the prices of food imports and things like that. But by the time we've left the EU, tariffs will be lower, so those prices will go down again. Probably. In the short term, obviously, it's going to be chaos. We don't know how it's going to pan out. But if interest rates do go up, that might have a strong... If they go up much, that could have quite a powerful implication for the property market. Because an enormous number of people are very overextended with their mortgages in this country. And they're just paying. I mean, a 1% increase in the mortgage on a £500,000 house is a lot of money. Supposing you have a mortgage for £400,000. 1% a year is £4,000 a year. That will be your extra mortgage payments for a 1% increase in interest rates. You've got to find another £4,000. A lot of these people are fully stretched. So we could find at least a wobble on the property market. And of course that could bring on a full-scale recession. As one person put it, it's sort of pain now for future gain. I myself said we could end up with a recession, maybe not right away, but in a while. It's not at all impossible, and we'll just have to put up with it and hope for the best. It's probably better to do this than suffer more undemocratic government, I think. We've got to bring the politicians under control and the elites. They've been going too far for too long. Consulting us, the public, and then doing what they want anyway half the time. It's just unacceptable. And that, I think, is the key message of this vote. And actually, if the property market does wobble, it's purely the result of the banks lending to people who can't really afford it, and the government encouraging this with their schemes for people who can't afford these prices. It just encourages prices to go up, it encourages people to be overstretched, and we might see some fallout. Maybe some of us then might be able to actually afford to buy a house or a flat or something, a garage maybe. It's also going to bring about a crisis of legitimacy throughout the EU now, because it's telling the EU too that we don't like the way we've been governed. This is not acceptable. That's despite the arguments about economics, immigration. For me, and I think really in a way in the back of a lot of people's minds, this illegitimate form of government has been a little nagging worry all this time. And the way the elites blithely proceed with their plans. You don't need to be a conspiracy theorist to see this. You can see that the public are widely ignored quite easily. It has to, well, let's see. It is a crisis of legitimacy. Let's see if they actually make some changes. Because let's face it, this is going to encourage other referendums throughout the EU. There are lots of anti-EU movements throughout the EU. Now, Spain has just had great gains for a kind of pro-anti-EU party. They don't want to leave, but they're very much strongly in favour of pro-EU reforms. Italy too, with Beppo. There's strong movements for reform in Europe, and this vote is in a way part of that. There are lots of worse anti-EU groups, racist groups in Europe. Marine Le Pen in France, I think, is a kind of a racist group. There's anti-EU groups in France, Italy, even in Germany, Holland or the Netherlands, Sweden, Austria. They've been making gains, these parties. And it's not just about free movement, the immigration crisis, the euro crisis. It's all of these things and the lack of democratic legitimacy. For democracy, the EU is bad. It has the shape of democratic institutions, but the way they actually run is undemocratic. They're run kind of like the Soviet Union used to run them. So you have a parliament who can vote for the leader of the commission, but there's only one candidate. You have a European Council of Ministers who are elected by we the public, like David Cameron is our entry, but they debate matters which are given to them by the Commission to debate, and the Commission has had a trilogue with a member of the Council, a member of the Parliament, a member of the Commission, maybe some experts, and then they go to the Council and tell them what they've discussed, and the Council votes on those discussions. They don't have the actual original info. They're not briefed. It's fake democracy, and truly terrible, actually, and good riddance to it. We're out of it. Soon we'll be. Maybe they'll try and squeeze through another referendum for us. Somehow I doubt it. I think it feels too, even though it's a small majority, it feels too definite. I think we're going to leave. And I don't think that the EU is going to be able to successfully punish us for leaving with a bad deal, because for some countries in the EU, Britain leaving is something of a disaster. Ireland, for example, which I mentioned earlier, something like 20% of our trade is with Ireland. If they can't trade freely with us, if they have to pass through tariff barriers, that's going to be terrible for them. They're going to push for Britain to have a good deal. And there are other countries we trade with, even Germany, who would like to punish us, I'm sure, but they trade a lot with us. And they're going to have to be careful not to punish their own industries. So I think we can get a decent deal, and probably more or less access as to the freedom to the single market. We'll have to be more in with the European Free Trade Association. A lot of countries are in that anyway, and of course we can abide by world trade rules where the tariffs are lower. But we might see pressure for other referenda in other countries in Europe. The majority of some countries' populations do seem to be against the EU now. France, the Netherlands. On the other hand, of course, how is the EU going to react? They're going to try and consolidate. They're going to be scared, so they'll pull in their horns. They're going to try probably to speed up unification with a new treaty, perhaps. Will they force it through despite the population voting against it, like they did for the EU constitution? Probably. If they haven't learned their lesson, they will. We shall see. But I think the message of this vote is that the elites, the politicians, the big business leaders, the wealthy cabals, if these things exist, should understand that when we the public are treated with contempt, that's not invisible to us. We may be ignorant and badly educated because of our rubbishy school systems, but we're not stupid. We can see when we're being treated with contempt, and this is a message to you, political leaders around the world. Listen, or else. One interesting statistic is that a poll of Leave of voters actually showed that half of Leave voters actually felt that the referendum vote was going to be rigged. and that a Remain campaign would win because of vote rigging. If half of Leave voters think that, or thought that, and they were half of the total vote, that means roughly a quarter of the population of the country who voted, or who were polled, don't think that this country is being ruled by consent, by democracy. A quarter of the population suspect that this country is not democratic. That really is an important message to the leadership. That is the result of treating the public with contempt. Now, you have been treated with contempt. How do you like it? There are movements through Europe which are rather uglier, more racist, that think the same thing. This democratic legitimacy question really has to be sorted out. And I think that's the key message of this referendum. Whether it works out and we have a terrible recession, who knows? We've jumped on the roller coaster. We've put our 10 pence in the slot. It's probably about £2 these days. Maybe it's even 5, I don't know, but we're off for a ride now. It's going to be up and down. Let's see how it goes. Okay, I'm probably not going to post another video this weekend because I'm away, so I'll just probably post some game videos because I won't have time, I think, to do another talk about something, unless I think of something. But at the moment, my brain is all swamped by this referendum stuff, so we'll see. Otherwise, bye for now anyway, and we'll see how it goes. Bye.